Yeah, hello everybody from my side. Welcome to my webinar hat trick. So it's my third in a row, and you can look forward to somebody else next time, I think. Topic of today is License Manager, and I have to excuse myself because I have a cold, so I might be coughing in between, but don't feel disturbed from that. So I'll start with a couple of slides just to give the, let's say, the basic background of License Manager. Then I'll also show some demo use cases, and at the end I'll talk a little bit about License Manager as a backend for shop systems, if somebody of you is interested in that. Okay, License Manager. What is it all about? This is our standard first slide after the title slide. So what can License Manager do? License Manager can basically protect a couple of different services. So with License Manager we concentrated on OGC and Inspire services, and it's able to protect services, layers, operations, all the stuff you also know from Security Manager. And then probably first question which arises is, what's the difference then between License Manager and Security Manager? And I'm going to explain that during the last couple of slides. So License Manager, of course, handles license models, and I think it's good to start explaining what a license model consists of. So it has a couple of different aspects. The first one is the license description, which explains what the license is all about. So what am I going to license? What is the service all about, and something like that. The second part of a license model is the definition of terms and conditions, which tells you what is allowed with that license, what is not, beyond anything you can control technically, such as access rights or something like that. That explains what you're allowed to do with the service once you got access. So maybe that can be restricted to certain purposes and something like that. That can be all written in the terms and conditions. And by using License Manager, you can make sure that each user who gets a license has agreed to your terms and conditions before, and therefore they are somehow legally in place, which is an important factor, although let's say following the license conditions probably can't be controlled electronically. So then there are a couple of optional aspects of a license model. First of all, there are configuration options, so you can define licenses which are configurable in License Manager, which allows you to set different configuration options, such as let the user select a certain spatial area he wants to get access for, let the user select a certain purpose of use, and something like that. And these different configuration options can lead to different access rights, for instance. So when we're talking about the area example, if you choose a certain area, then License Manager afterwards would also restrict access to that certain area you selected in your license conclusion process. And it could also affect the price model, which is combined with that license. So of course, if you have different purposes of use, one of these might be more expensive than other ones. So commercial use might be more expensive than private use. And so you can use these configuration parameters as well in your price models. So next thing you can define are access rights. When talking about, let's say, spatial restrictions, these are already access rights. The license creates certain access rights which follow the configuration you selected in before, or you can also define static access rights which come along with the license. And I mark this as optional. This is not completely true, so you always have access rights, but you can also decide to grant everything, so have some kind of grant all right in there, so there are no restrictions, but you can also define restrictions in your access rights. So let's say it's more the definition of restrictions to a service which is optional in License Manager. And you have price models, so you can define price models for concluding licenses. You can define price models for using services afterwards. If you want or have to charge for a certain service, then you can define price models in License Manager which describe the let's say the formula which is used for accounting afterwards. And this is also optional, so you can also skip license models completely, and licenses are for free, and the only thing you then agree with your customers is the terms and conditions of the license. So when we are talking about the licensing of geo-services, that has also different, let's say, functional aspects. First of all, of course, is the protection aspect. So you protect services against unlicensed access. You only allow access if somebody has a valid license. All other access attempts are blocked, and so this is some kind of enforcing license conclusion before accessing a service. And if the license includes restrictions, as I said, spatial restrictions, content restrictions, restrictions on operations you want to deploy there, they are also enforced by license manager. And this protection aspect is somehow similar to the use of security manager. The difference now is, first of all, in the conclusion aspect. In security manager, you would have to define policies and assign these policies to roles and assign roles to users for each new user which enters your system and wants to get permissions. With License Manager, you create license models and define them as a kind of offer for your users. And users can access License Manager, can see which services are offered, can conclude their licenses on their own, and then get access automatically. So it takes a lot of load from the administrators, because they don't have to create rights and assign roles and something like that. This is all done automatically when users get into the system, agree and conclude certain licenses, and then they get permissions automatically, which can also be limited for a certain duration and something like that. So this is one important aspect of License Manager. And then, of course, you have the management aspect. Of course, you have to maintain existing licenses. As an administrator, you want to check which user has which licenses. You want to do the accounting if you have price models associated with these licenses. And this is all provided by the License Manager administration tool. Also, as a user, you can access License Manager, the License Manager administration, and check what are your licenses, what are you allowed to do, review the terms and conditions of your licenses, check how much money you already spent for certain licenses, and all these things. This is the management aspect of License Manager. Well, talking about the functionality, on the right-hand side, these should be services or resources, and on the left-hand side, this is the happy user. And in a world which doesn't use licensing, you just access these services directly. And with License Manager, first you can impose some kind of control. You check whether users are allowed to use these services, check whether the license is present, and of course you also have to provide certain ways of getting a license, and these are the aspects which are covered by License Manager. So first of all, allowing you to get a license, to conclude a license, and maintain the license, and when you're trying to access the service, check if the license is there, if you have a valid license, if let's say your request fits to the license conditions and license permissions, and then give access if everything fits. So for a data provider, what are reasons to use License Manager? Of course, you have a management tool for your different license models and price models for your geo services. You have an editor tool, a browser-based tool which allows you to create license models and to define license descriptions, terms and conditions, rights of use, price models, and all these things. The definition of rights which are associated with the license are somehow similar to Security Manager. So you can you can define rights for different layers or feature types of services. You can define rights for operations. You can define rights with spatial restrictions, and all these things associated with these license models, which means each user which creates or which concludes such a license will then be able to make use of the policies or permissions which are associated with it. Of course, it's important that you can integrate the licensing into existing geoportals and security solutions. We will see in the demo afterwards an integration of License Manager into the Esri geoportal, how that looks like, and what you want to achieve is, of course, that you have a, let's say, a unified workflow, so you don't have to switch between different systems, but you want to have the licensing workflow integrated in the general workflow of using such a portal. And for those of you who are familiar with the INSPIRE regulations on data and service sharing, so there is a guidance document, and that includes certain, let's say, license templates in the annexes, which are called INSPIRE Basic and Specific licenses, and of course you can also create something like that with a License Manager. So we will see that afterwards in the demo. For those of you who are interested somehow in technology, that looks a little bit confusing, but that's the way the product looks like. So you have a lot of different components. You have your clients which access License Manager, so this is the WSS component or the enforcement point. This is the endpoint you usually access when trying to access the license protected services. And this enforcement point checks whether you are authorized or not, and therefore the next thing which happens is an authorized request is sent to the PDP, the policy decision point, and this one decides whether you get access or not. This is similar to Security Manager, but the different part is the PDP doesn't check predefined policies somewhere in a policy store, but it checks your license repository and checks whether for this request there is a valid license which allows a certain action. And if this is allowed by a certain license, then access is permitted. And as I said, accounting can also be activated with License Manager. Therefore, you have an accounting component which first of all logs all activity which goes through here, at least if pricing is defined in that license model, and afterwards it accounts based on a certain price model and then sends regular summaries of what you used in License Manager. Then you have this part down here, and this part is for license conclusion. So you have some kind of license shop. This is integrated in the License Manager component, so a user can log into License Manager, decide to get a new license, to conclude a new license, and this license shop communicates with the component which is WPOS, Web Pricing Ordering Service. This one contains the license models, the license descriptions, and after a license is concluded, it's stored in the license repository, and therefore you can always access the license afterwards when you try to access the service. And then we have the gateway in between, so this is just an integration option into clients which are not able to authenticate and to work with licenses. Therefore we have the gateway component. I think most of you know that, and I don't have to go into details there. So the workflow is the following. Of course, first thing you have to have in your system are users and roles. When I was talking about the advantages of License Manager over Security Manager, I said you don't have to manage all the different roles and access rights for each user individually. So now you could say, well, but you have to manage the users, which is true basically, but License Manager as well as Security Manager, of course, provides also a self-registration workflow so that you can allow users to register automatically. They get a default role, and you can also assign certain license models already to a default role, something like that. So that can be a complete autonomous workflow for the user without any interference of administrators, if you want to do it like that.